Good evening. Mr. Rieger, how do you do? My name is Roger Cook. This man wants £2,000 to talk to the Cook Report. But we don't pay fat fees to men who follow Hitler. We just track them down. Just hours ago, 2 people were burned to death and 1 horribly injured in this hostel for homeless people. Tonight, the rise of right-wing extremism in Germany. The neo-Nazis at the heart of the European community. Who are they and who controls them? Zigeil, Kameraden, Zigeil! At first, the German government didn't want to admit it, but then they had to. The extreme right is back with a vengeance. In the past year alone, 17 deaths and 2,000 incidents of racial violence have shocked all the mainstream political parties. For the first time since World War II, the new Nazis have felt important.
In Bonn, they are afraid, but they don't yet realize we are their worst nightmare.
This is good for storming houses. A bit like Molotov cocktails. It's easy, you just fit the fuse like this. And that's it then.
At a new Nazi training camp, a lesson in how to make petrol bombs and blow out doors.
Let's try it out then.
Put to use in real life, once the door is down, the young thugs go in. Drive the immigrant workers out, and there'll be more jobs and a higher standard of living for real Germans. That's the simplistic message from the new Nazi leaders.
The leaders don't do the attacks by their own because they are afraid to have to go to prison because they know what will happen if they are caught. The kids don't.
So, thanks to their cunning leadership, these naive and easily led young thugs now exert an influence out of all proportion to their modest numbers.
We nationalists believe everyone has a right to his origins, whether Turks or Jews, but outside Europe.
Germany for the Germans, foreigners out, shouts the Deutsche Alternative Party. Family snapshots. Lebanese children, innocent victims of this criminal lunacy. 2 sisters from one family.
Ja, nach Attentat, 3 junge Männer in Hüngse, 2 Molotov-Cocktails geschmissen zu meiner Wohnung.
When we were attacked, 3 young men threw 2 Molotov cocktails into my flat, into the bedroom. The children didn't have a chance.
The elder daughter paid the highest price. Zybida is waiting to find out how much plastic surgery might help, but her feet are beyond repair. And she's been denied her favorite pastime.
Before I got burnt, I liked going swimming, but not anymore.
Another incident, another arrest. The government has now banned the most extreme new Nazi groups. But the Nazis, whilst fragmented, do have a command network. This time, only a catalogue of wartime insignia is seized. But the most revealing document we found pointed towards the man whose ideas most influenced the young Nazis. It was the new Nazis' secret 9-point political plan, which seeks to deal with immigrants in a similar repulsive way to the songs the Nazis still sing behind closed doors.
Do you know his colour? If you don't know his colour, and he's black and ugly, then smash him in the face. That's not a man, it's just an ape. Don't think too long, just go bang.
Das ist kein Mensch, das ist ein Aff. Denk nicht lang nach, denk nicht lang nach, mach einfach mach.
The target of this hate, the immigrants or guest workers, are arming themselves. Their leaders say the stark parallels with the 30s can't be ignored.
Es gibt sehr große Ähnlichkeiten, leider.
Unfortunately, there are great similarities. It is not militant neo-Nazis attacking the non-Germans. There is a sizable proportion of the German population, and you should not underestimate their numbers, frequently applauding these attacks and agreeing or sympathizing with them. Therefore, the situation is extremely serious.
Ironically, the violence grew out of celebration. When the Berlin Wall came down and democracy swallowed communism, the far right saw its chance as hopes in East Germany of near-instant prosperity gave way to frustration. The city of Eberswalde, for example, has 40% unemployment and a large number of immigrants to blame. In the market square, an immigrant woman sells smuggled cigarettes. The far right exploited these images, seeking to test whether they had the support of the silent majority. The first apparently orchestrated racial attack came in Eberswalde. An African was beaten to death.
In Eberswalde haben sie nicht geklatscht.
In Eberswalde, they did not applaud. I must say that in defense of the town.
Aber dennoch,
but even in Eberswalde, the silent majority should not be taken lightly.
For the next 18 months, the number of racial attacks rose steadily. The new Nazis were responding to that secret 9-point plan and to the accompanying message that it was their duty to encourage the foreigners to leave. In Eberswalde, they did just that, culminating with the burning down of the guest workers' hostel. The town council can't guarantee it won't happen again.
The
problem of right-wing extremism is certainly still present in this town, as in all other German towns in the east and west. You can't stop the violence in one day. Foreigners could be attacked again at any time.
Deutschland in Deutschland, Ausländer raus! Deutschland in Deutschland!
Bloß weil man Zweiten Weltkrieg aus war, kann man uns
Some people are still thinking of World War II. Why should that be held against us? We are a new generation, which had nothing to do with it. Why shouldn't we be proud to be German?
Why not? Because they are deliberately conjuring up the images of yesteryear. 60 years ago this week, Hitler came to power.
And so Adolf Hitler, the one-time laborer, becomes chancellor.
And the rest is history. But is history now repeating itself? Events at Stokoe are all too typical. A young immigrant worker was almost beaten to death, immigrant houses were attacked, and the parish priest threatened.
They have threatened me to burn down our home and to kill me.
The new Nazis stripped the communist stars from gravestones and used them as missiles in a series of attacks on a nearby refugee hostel. The priest responded by getting the locals to light candles as a demonstration of solidarity from the silent majority.
I am not a prophet, but I can see that after the unification, there was so many happiness, there was so many hope, and now the most of my people here is without hope, without work.
But he did give his parishioners hope in the fight against the new Nazis. Over the weeks, more and more windows lit up. The question is, however, will the government give these ordinary, decent people hope over jobs?
I hope so.
But if the government doesn't respond, what's going to happen? Will the new Nazis win?
It can be.
World War II lives again. It's 3:15 in the morning. On the left, Arnulf Priem, paramilitary leader of the banned Deutsche Alternative Party and son of an SS corporal, relaxes, confident of his cause.
Wie bei einem Schneeballeffekt. Ich schmeiße auf einem Berg.
It is like the snowball effect. If I throw a small snowball down the mountainside, it's an avalanche by the time it reaches the bottom. Our snowball is now halfway down the mountain.
And it doesn't take much to get the ball rolling, says Priem, in a cynical reference to his easily manipulable foot soldiers.
Danube, Rhine and Weitzer. German rivers, not borders. I take my leave by saying,
Heil! Sieg! Heil! Sieg! Heil!
Im neu erschlossenen Wilden Westen
when the Wild West was opened up, the great herds of cattle moved slowly, but the cowboys drove them faster. They also drove the cattle in the right direction. I think we, on the right, now have enough cowboys.
And those cowboy leaders have spread the violence across Germany. In this case, to the affluent West German town of Mölln, the last place to expect trouble. A few hundred immigrants live here. Wreaths now mark the house where one family had lived for 20 years. 3 people died in this fire, a 51-year-old grandmother and 2 girls aged 10 and 13. Fortunately, the youngest child was saved.
Ich hochmachen kleine Kinder, runter.
I picked the little one up and threw him from the 3rd floor. People spread a blanket, but there were only a few there. I didn't see the fire brigade. No help came.
Nobody came because in an unbelievably callous act, the Nazis first set fire to a decoy house, then firebombed the house where the family died. Escaping from that fire, Iron suffered multiple fractures of one leg and broke her back, whilst Hava broke her thigh and hip.
What should Germany do? Germany should really be careful of the Nazis. I get letters from the Nazis every day. Why are they sending letters to me? Why? What do they want? I've lost my daughter, my flat, everything. Just what do they want?
This was the event which finally shook the Germans. But as the new Nazi leaders made plain, it was only one step towards their intended goal.
We say clearly and unambiguously, every black or Vietnamese who burns is one too many. But we also state categorically, if the Jubai government in Bonn does nothing, more blacks and Viets will burn.
For this speech, Thomas Dienel of the Deutsche National Party has gone to prison.
To be quite clear, unfortunately nobody was killed.
The German Jewish community is now expressing its growing concern.
If the Jewish people in Germany will lose their confidence in the democracy, the German democracy, Germany will lose more than that, because this would be the first sign of an earthquake which would be shatter the whole German society.
This is Sachsenhausen concentration camp, preserved as a memorial to all those who died in places like this during the Second World War. Late last year, right-wing extremists firebombed the Jewish barracks here in an attempt to destroy it, perhaps to say the Holocaust never happened. Yet these same extremists want to build more camps like this. Deportation camps, they call them, where foreign workers can be made to work for prison wages in order to pay their own way home. That idea has fired the imagination of today's young Nazis. We discovered it in that confidential 9-point political plan, a plan written and secretly distributed by a man who is far too clever to threaten the Jews in public. After all, Jürgen Rieger is a successful Hamburg lawyer and a defender of Nazis in court.
We know more about, in the public, we know more about people like Prim and Hübner and Kuhn and others, and the ugly lot. We don't know a lot about the nice and respectable people who might be controlling a lot of these activities. Therefore I'm quite disturbed, really, that people like Rieger haven't been fined yet in the public, and he must be very clever, actually.
Und der türkische Staatspräsident hat sich auch nicht hingestellt und hat an seine türkischen Landsleute...
In a rare public appearance, and on the same platform as fellow National Socialist Christian Worsch, Rieger promotes his extremist views.
Der 9-Punkte-Plan von Herrn Rieger.
I think Mr. Rieger's 9-point plan is a very important, yet a very dangerous document. It really reflects the sort of thing you now hear in German pubs, and I would guess in East German homes.
And there's little doubt, despite the government's protestations to the contrary, that there is a Nazi network, and that incidents are often connected. The same faces turn up at rally after rally, as do the same marshals with their powerful walkie-talkies.
These are people who were murdered by foreigners, cut down in the cruelest way.
As usual, Rieger turned the tables, putting the blame on the foreigners rather than on his followers. A tactical move familiar to Bernd Wagner.
It is not Rieger's physical strength that makes him dangerous. It is the strength and appeal of his ideas.
Good evening, Mr. Rieger. How do you do? Jürgen Rieger, who says he doesn't give interviews, said he would make an exception for £2,000. At his home-come office, we pretended to negotiate.
The problem is, what about the fee?
We had no intention of paying him, but used the negotiation ploy to make him show his true colours. You are, in your own words, the most prominent lawyer of the right.
Right.
And
you, in Germany.
In Germany. Yeah. And you act for two...
I'm the number first, yes, okay.
Yeah, and
for
you do...
all the forbidden parties, right.
You act for them.
Yeah, right.
So you must believe in them.
Yeah. They have only one lawyer or solicitor, what you will say, and that I am.
And you're the author of the 9-point plan.
Right.
And this contains some fairly controversial material.
Right.
Like the establishment of deportation camps.
Right. maybe.
Well, it does. I mean, we've read it.
Yeah.
Well, this sounds fairly radical. It sounds very much like going back to the 30s, doesn't it?
No. They have no deportation camps there.
No, but a deportation camp, you're keeping people there and they're working for prison wages until they can pay their own way back.
Why should they have better pages than the German prison? Why should they have? They can go. If you have read the plan, then you know. These people should go.
In fact, Riga goes further than merely proposing deportation camps. Here in Niederölle, we found proof that at a secret meeting to launch the plan, he encouraged activists to take the law into their own hands. But are you against violence?
Pardon me?
Are you against violence? Because you may think your way through things, but some of the people in the groups that you act for don't think. After Niederölle, for example, places got burnt down.
If you are an army officer, if you are an army officer, then you are for violence. And if you say, if you now live in Yugoslavia or something like that, then it will not work without violence.
An experienced Nazi watcher confirmed Riga's importance.
He seems to be the grey eminence behind a lot of things happening here, because when judging the distribution of the papers, there's obviously a network, and Riga has more influence than we actually thought.
But are you against violence?
Sometimes yes, sometimes not.
Well, you tell me when, because a lot of people have...
No, I will not tell you when or when not, or something like that. You haven't paid.
But there was still more to quiz him about. After all, he's also behind an institute which promotes eugenics, the so-called science of breeding for purity, so that the northern races, as he calls them, can maintain their natural superiority. Some people describe you as a neo-Nazi and a dangerous one. Do you accept that? Maybe you are?
But no, I'm not a neo-Nazi. I'm a person who has an IQ which is a little bit higher than the average IQ, And therefore I have my own opinion on everything. And if you say this part in National Socialism, then I would say that's good. And if you say that part, then I would say it's bad.
Well, deporting people is good. Eugenics, the purity of the race is good. You believe in that?
Deporting people is good if they are not people who are of the same race as we are.
Racial purity is good?
Racial purity is good, okay. Eugenics is good, of course.
But these are things that were believed in.
Murdering Jews is not good, because my belief is that every people of the world has the right to live in his own habit. I have nothing against Israel, for example.
But people have been murdered here. They've been firebombed as a result of having their racial hatred stirred up.
In the last 1.5 years, there are 18 right-wing men murdered from Turkeys and other foreigners. And nobody's going on the streets and is talking about these things.
Jürgen Riga blaming the other side again, whilst he privately encourages violence. This weekend, and the Sado girls, badly burnt in a firebomb attack, go to see their plastic surgeon. Zybeder now faces years in a body bandage, and that evening, last Saturday, the government announced it would not pay the girls compensation because they're not classed as European. That night also, the hostel for the homeless in Arnstadt burnt down. 2 people were killed, and a 3rd man was horribly injured. As they sift carefully through the charred debris of this weekend's death scene here at Arnstadt, they're seeking evidence to confirm the original news that this was, in fact, a right-wing petrol bomb attack. If it was, then it carries with it a sinister new dimension. For the people who died here were just the kind of people that once figured on Hitler's death list all those years ago. Alcoholics, mental and social inadequates. And here's the real point. These people were not foreigners. They were Germans.